Most people believe that history just happens, that events are random, that governments react, the crisis emerge, and then the world stumbles forward as if by accident. But history isn't shaped by the masses, it's shaped by ideas. And ideas are shaped, refined, and agreed upon long before they reach us as policy. In 1968, a group of industrialists, scientists, economists, and former statesmen came together under a simple premise that the world faced a set of interconnected problems far too complex for nations to deal with alone. They called themselves the Club of Rome. They were unelected, unaccountable, and very global in outlook. And they didn't seek our vote, they sought influence. Their most famous contribution came in 1972 with a report called Limits to Growth. Its core message was clear, that the planet is finite, resources are finite, and that human population growth is a problem. Not a challenge to be stewarded, a problem to be solved. And from that moment on, a subtle but profound shift took place. Humanity was no longer framed as a creation with purpose, dignity and responsibility. It was reframed as a variable, a strain on systems and a risk factor. Now, this wasn't shouted from the rooftops. It didn't need to be. These ideas moved quietly through academia, through policy circles and through international institutions. They became the intellectual background noise of modern governance. And then came the nuclear age. 2 world wars had already shown what industrialised conflict could do. Hiroshima and Nagasaki showed what the next one would actually lead to. Mutually assured destruction didn't just make global war undesirable, it made it unusable, suicidal. There was no reset, no winners, just annihilation. So if you're an elite policy planner, convinced that the world is overpopulated, convinced that consumption must be reduced, convinced that humanity needs managing, like world war is no longer a viable tool, the tanks won't work, invasions don't work, the risk of total collapse is very clear. But power doesn't disappear in that scenario, it adapts. It moves into frameworks instead of force, targets instead of tanks, compliance instead of conquest. It moves into economics, regulation, incentives, restrictions, and all of these norms that we see today. It moves into a global coordination. Now, by the time that the United Nations announced Agenda 2030, the intellectual groundwork has already been laid. Sustainable development, behaviour change, managed growth, reduced consumption, restructured food systems, controlled energy use, harmonised policy across borders. Agenda